Banana Slam Jam.
Welcome, everybody, to the third edition of the Wombo Combo podcast with Monkeys Forever and I.
Hello.
So you just got done with the series. I didn't get the chance to check it out. How'd it go?
It went amazingly, just beat Thunder Predator in game 3, so we're in loser bracket finals against Crazy in a while. And yeah, that's our first series win against Thunder Predator and any official ever, I think.
Okay, so somebody in chat's saying, can you talk about the ballsy all-in push at the end? So what really happened there? Apparently it was a pretty epic ending.
Necro died without buyback, and we were on their high ground, and we just kind of I think it was Sam or no, it was Sam or Husky. I think someone was just pinging through and just go in, no Necro buyback, and we all had buybacks, and we just ended the game.
Nice. Okay, sounds like a fun one. Were you playing Batrider?
I was not, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, so you had to experience
that hero has been. I actually checked the stats, VSJ. In the 4 months that we've been a team, Bat has been banned 89 times against us.
Well, hey, man, that's a large degree of respect or disrespect. Either way,
I mean, you can really look at it either way. So,
hey, you won the series and won the game. That's all that matters, right? So,
yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. So that's tomorrow. So yeah, definitely check that out, guys. I'm busy in Ukraine. For anyone who hasn't, wondering what the fuck I'm doing.
How's Ukraine been?
Well, basically, we all had to re-quarantine for 5 days. So I've just been sitting in this apartment for the majority of the time I've been here. We were originally planning on being in the studio, but just extra precautions, the people that just arrived, even though I've been tested, we got tested again, and they're basically just let's not get one person to be sick and then give everyone.
Yeah.
So we're being super cautious. So I'm been phoning in during the times I've been on.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's been
Yeah.
a little awkward because everyone's in chats BSJ flew all the way out to Ukraine for this.
to just be in a remote location.
Yeah. People are telling me to turn you down a little bit. No, yeah, I'm well, I'm sure eventually it'll sort itself out. Right now it's right now is the closed qualifiers to the main event.
To the Omega League or whatever. Yeah.
Well, in Europe, there's 2 divisions. There's going to be
there's a Mortal and Divine. Yeah.
So there's only 2 slots from this qualifier to go to the Immortal, which obviously has all the liquids and Team Nigma, Alliance,
all the top, all the top boys.
So I should be casting in person anytime in the next couple days, assuming for whatever reason my second test doesn't come back positive. So,
and how long are you there again?
I am here until at least the 10th of September.
Oh, okay.
I realized I had to clarify that one a little bit. So yeah, it is quite the duration of the stay. But I have been playing EU pubs, and before we get into our core topic of the day, I will say, and I know most people agree and are well aware, EU pubs are so much better than North American pubs. At least, okay, obviously there's shitters, obviously there's people who rage and whatever, that's never going to change. But I don't feel like I've had to tell my team what to do as a basic rule of the Dota game yet. I've played 23 pubs, and I'm okay, maybe they're not taking the best fights, maybe they're doing some weird shit, but people are just, supports by detection, cores buy the items they're kind of supposed to buy, at least reasonably. I have a mag on my team, he empowers me.
I will say that there's not as much AFK farming in EU.
It's
you don't get the NA special as much, but other than that, I honestly don't think there's.
I remember you saying you didn't think the EU pubs were much better, but I don't know, man. I think it's day and night. I told my viewers already on my stream, in NA, unless it's a top 50 player that I know, I even gave you as an example, if they're playing mag, I have to beg them to empower me. In EU, I've had 5 mags, and they all ping me on where to meet them in order to get empowered. I'm okay, I'm not even the one saying anything. So
Yeah.
I have had like a couple Russians gang up on me. Like they all know I'm the only American on the team somehow. So they all blame me for being an NA shitter or whatever. So that's been unpleasant. But at the end of the day, I don't know. The laning is much better there. Is what the people the supports in general are better. Like the rank 500, 600 support players in NA. That's like, pray to God the guy knows how to pull a creep camp, but in EU it doesn't seem to be the issue. But
Yeah, no, I actually hear Husky complain that EU has way too many support players. Like every time he queues EU, he's just like, "I hate EU, man.
fucking
Everybody
dream,
just steals
baby."
my role." Like,
Yeah, Husky core even on low ping is so put him on EU. That's a yikes. But with all that in mind, our core concept for today, I've been like kind of formulating how I want to do the show. I think we're all gonna start like as general as possible because in the future we're gonna get more and more specific on these topics. But
yep.
I wanted to give a bit of an origin podcast. How did we get into Dota? Why do we play Dota? Why should someone potentially get into Dota? Why are people at all never getting into Dota? All these type of things that have to do with starting to play Dota in the first place. I think it's a very broad topic that can obviously be narrowed down in the future. But I'll start with you, Monkeys. So how long have you been playing Dota, sir?
I'm going on like 17 years if I haven't already passed 17 years. I don't
Jesus.
remember like the exact age I started Dota, but somewhere around 17 years right now.
Okay, so that puts you at age like 11 or 12? Like 10
I
years
was
old?
10.
10?
Yeah, I was like
Jesus.
9.5, 10, something like that. when I
Okay,
first
so like
started.
what got you into Dota? Was it a friend? Was it just by stumbling upon it during Dota 1 or what?
It was actually my brother. I mean, it was my brother and like one of his friends. Basically, my brother is 5 years older than me, and when I was 9 or 10, he was like 14, 14, 15, and him and his friends are having like some LAN party. You know how back in the day, like you would, or like haul your computer over to your friend's house just to like
I do.
play on the same internet connection with everyone like right next to each other. Well, that's what my brother was doing, and my parents were like, "Well, take Jaren with you. He loves video games." And he's like, "Oh, all right, fine." So he brought me along, and he introduced me and his one friend to Dota. And yeah, his friend is also like 5 years older than me, and but me and his friend, we literally that night we played Dota for like 12 hours straight, the entire night, and we played Lion Medusa like every single game.
Which one were you?
I was Lion because I thought Mana Burn or Mana Drain was like the most broken spell.
I think it was a funny conversation I knew was going to come up here. So was Lion like your first hero, or what was like your first
Lion
hero you
was my
identified
first
with?
hero, but the first so like that was like the first hero that I thought was like broken because Medusa also like drained mana or something like
Yeah,
with
with
one of
Snake.
Medusa's. Yeah, I don't think it was Snake though, because Snake was like a different spell like back then. Because the patch that I started on was like 5.64 or
Yeah.
something like that.
I don't
So
even know what
I
that
mean,
patch looked like.
yeah. Like I mean, it was so old. So but like anyways, we thought Lion Medusa was a really great combo, and we were having so much fun playing that combo. But the hero that I really loved first was Omni Knight, and I don't remember why, but I would every time I played Omni Knight, I would buy 5 ogre clubs, like the plus 10
You were
strength
strong.
item. I would buy 5 ogre clubs, and I'd be like, I'm the greatest. I can never die, and I would just run at people for the rest of the game. But that was definitely like my first hero that I felt godly on in Dota.
Yeah,
what
I
what
will
was old
say
school
that
Omni Knight.
the Dota 1 builds like that I've heard of, like 4 perseverances and stuff. Those were
Yeah.
I do somewhat envy that era where like it obviously
Where
wasn't much
everyone's
of
just
a
having
yeah,
fun,
it wasn't much of a refined game. I also miss
Yeah.
video games in general as like a side tidbit where like I remember growing up when I played like N64 and shit and I was playing like Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie and like all
Yeah.
you could do is like buy those little magazine guide things and like
Yeah.
it would tell it all had like a detailed layout of the map, but it was all like on you to figure it out, and everyone
Yeah.
sucked, right? Like there was no
Yeah.
refinement of builds or like strategy to beat the game faster. It was just like, you know, figure it out as you go and
Yeah.
hope it,
I
you know.
I I mean, dude, the just the Warcraft 3 era of custom games in general is just like so cool to me. Like that was the peak of just online gaming in my opinion, because there was just such a big community for so many like smaller games,
Yeah.
and it just was like really cool in my opinion to just like just see all of like the mini communities like form around custom games, and then those custom games becoming bigger and bigger, and in some cases like Dota becoming their own game because of just having this platform to allow people to get their ideas out there basically as far as like video games go. And you just had such a big variety in Warcraft 3. I mean, you had some limitations, sure, with like the map editors and whatnot, but I don't know. I just thought Warcraft 3 BattleNet era was like it was just so fun.
For me, the downfall of video games was money, you know? Like obviously I'm happy to be making a living doing it or whatever, but
Yeah.
like that was all like the only reason to be a part of community and shit was just to like have people to play with. Like there was no reason to worry about having the perfect build, being the absolute best in the world. Who gave a shit, right? Like yeah,
Yeah.
you were trying to be better and trying to win or whatever, but I remember I played a shit ton of StarCraft 2 custom games. I played a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
I don't remember what one of them was called, but it was something like Hero Arena, like Marine Arena or something like that.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
It was so much fun. I played that shit for like
Yeah.
hours, and that was like right before I started playing Dota. StarCraft was like my first PC game, which
Mhm.
I started playing like late in high school. And I've even talked
Uh-huh.
about how I watch like Day 9 Fun Day Mondays and stuff like that because I see him sometimes in your channel. He's been in my channel too.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into Dota until about 8 years ago. My first game was in 2012,
Oh,
and
really? So you just
it was
yeah.
between my freshman and sophomore year of college.
Oh no, that's an awful time to get into
Yeah.
Dota.
So wait, yeah. That's exactly when it was. So what happened was all my friends and I who had been playing like Xbox games and stuff together. Now that we're like broke college kids, they're just like, well, we can't keep buying these like $60 Xbox games. So
Yeah.
we all had like a laptop or some way of playing Dota. And, I had like my 5-year-old Mac or whatever. And I was just like, originally when I saw Dota, they got me into it. They had played, I don't even know if any of them had. I think a few of them had played Dota 1. I think it was like one
Mhm.
of my high school's friends' college roommate, like somebody he had met had played Dota 1 and got him
Uh-huh.
into Dota 2 since like that was exactly when the beta for Dota 2 came out. Like Dota 2 beta started 7 months or so before I
Mhm.
started
Yeah.
playing. Um and I saw the game and I was like, dude, this is some real nerd shit, man. Like, what the hell? Like I saw, I couldn't get on it, man. I was like, what the hell? But it was in the summer, obviously, between freshman and sophomore year, so had pretty much nothing else to do. And my friends got me to play with them. Obviously, I was put on bitch support. As my first hero was Lich. I was
Ah,
told
alright.
push E, then push Q. I was like, okay, I can do
That
that.
was back when Lich had a sacrifice, right?
Yeah, I
Or
remember.
dark ritual or whatever it was called.
Yes, I think it's just sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I remember like I would do it and he'd be like, "Wow, you're actually doing a decent job." Like I'm like, all I'm doing is pushing E on this one thing and
Yeah.
pushing Q on him, and I'm like, I guess looking back, I'm like, I
Yeah,
guess his
it was
standards
like
were
a
pretty
super
low.
easy concept for Brian to get. You're just like, oh yeah, I can do this. E my creep, Q him. All right, I got that.
So what happened was I had all my friends right that were playing, and I proceeded to play with them for like at least 2 to 3 years, 2.5 maybe, and
Mhm.
well, what happened was, me being me, like you said, you played Dota for like 12 hours the first day or whatever. I played Dota like probably 10 hours a day that whole summer, like every day almost, probably 5, 6 days a week. I played like 50, 60 hours a week of Dota. I was just obsessed with it. And then when I got
Mhm.
back into school, not going to get too gloomy on this podcast, I was going through a rough time in life. Let's just say that. I was going
Yeah.
through a rough time in life, which kind of led me to play more Dota than I really should have. And people may be like, BSJ, did Dota make you depressed or whatever? I'm like, nah, it was more like my escape. And I think a lot of people do view Dota that way, though. So, like,
Oh,
like,
absolutely,
as
man. I
escape from
mean,
life, right? Like, not just because of bad things, but.
so for the first or like maybe 5 years, I was playing Dota from like you know late 9 to like late 14 or like 10 to 15, something like that. I would be on and off with Dota. It would kind of be like a game that I had to be in the mood to fiend basically for those first 5 years. Like I had to really want to play Dota to like actually play a lot of Dota with my friends and whatnot. And if I wasn't in the mood, then I would just like just go and play other Warcraft custom games, and I just wouldn't really want to focus on it that much. But then, I had something very similar happen to me where, I don't really want to go into detail, but I had a lot of like
Crap.
family issues
Yeah.
basically like go on when I turned like 15, and there's just a shit ton of stress in my life, and I completely shut down, and that's when I just started absolutely grinding Dota. It was literally all of my free time went into Dota. And also when I went to like a private high school, so it was a very like unique high school basically. And I would be I basically my high school required us, or like basically required us to teach ourselves, if that makes sense. Like
Okay.
we were given like
It's a
a
nice way to save
curriculum.
money on budget.
We were given a curriculum, and basically our teachers would help us in like any way that like we wanted or whatever. But like it was on us to learn the information. And there wasn't as many like restrictions to like show up to class and stuff like that. It was kind of like college in a way, where like you weren't really punished for not going to class, but you're still required to learn all of the material and like
I see.
prove that you learned all of the material
Okay.
through like essays and stuff like that. So all of my free time just went into Dota, and not like actually focusing that hard on school. I mean, I still got like great grades and everything, but like all of my time went into Dota.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's definitely like what really pushed me towards it more, because like when I turned 18 or something, that's when a friend of mine from Dota 1 was like, "Hey, you're pretty good. You want to make a Dota 2 team with me?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? Like, let's see what happens." And then we qualified for our first LAN event when I was 19, and I was just like, "All right, this is fun. Got to go for it."
There you go, and never haven't looked back since, right?
Yep.
I I would say that like there's obviously a lot of different ways to get into Dota, but I think a lot of people stay for the same reason. Like it's some version of like for me at least, it's the one game that was ever truly able to just take me away from anything else. Like when you're
Yeah.
in the middle of a Dota game, nothing in the world, nothing, good or bad, matters. Like
Yeah.
nothing in the world. You're so focused on Dota. All that matters is the game of Dota. You can't have a
Yeah.
conversation with somebody. You can't think about eating. Like, you wake up from like 7 hours of Dota. When I say wake up, I mean like from a trance of 7 hours of Dota,
Yeah.
and you're like, shit, I'm hungry. Like
Yeah.
sometimes that happens with other games, but it's just not the same, right? Like Dota
I
just
mean, yeah. Sometimes I stream for 14 hours, and then at the end of the stream, I'm just like, "Oh wait, I haven't eaten today. What's going
that doesn't change after 17 years of Dota, which
on?" Yeah.
is crazy, right? And that's one of the things I love about Dota. And I think what I was going for with this episode is that we all have our different, like, so you talked about Lion Medusa, right? And
Yeah.
I remember specifically, so I had a bunch of friends that were playing, and what happened was, since I fiended so much, it was like, they're all here and this is like me, like over time. So like I slowly but surely caught up to them, and then became better than most of them.
Yeah.
And I had one friend out of the group who I'd never even met, and to this day have never met in real life, who I've played like
Uh-huh.
700 games of Dota with. Like I've played,
Mhm.
he's like my most played Dota person with. And we would run Witch Doctor Ursa off lane. We'd run it off lane. And our goal was to just fucking kill the guy. I'm pretty sure we have like 80% win rate on Witch Doctor Ursa off lane.
Really?
And like we'd like, probably go about even on every other combo. If we had lost like 2 or 3 games in a row, we'd be like, it's time. And we'd run
Yeah.
Witch Doctor Ursa off lane. And that was like, one of the reasons I have, 350 games of Ursa or whatever. Probably 80 or 90 of them were dual laning off lane with Witch Doctor.
Mhm.
And God, man, those are the day. Like there's just so many like things you just naturally fall into in Dota, where everyone has their own like warped perception of like these heroes were so good for me. Like I thought this
Yeah.
concept was just broken, and I entered Dota right when Lycanthrope was a hero, and I honestly confused him with Lifestealer all the time. I have really no idea why. Like I'd see Lifestealer and thought it was Lycan because the names were similar, and back then I'm
Yeah,
like, wait, like what's so broken about this hero? And then like he'd come out of the jungle like higher level than anyone else, and like I came in TI2. So everyone who's watching, like I saw people talking about like TI2, TI5. I came in TI2. Like I was like playing a bit before that, but then I started like fiending it ridiculously after TI2.
yeah.
That whole like Navi story like
Well,
got me.
yeah, the other thing that like about those hero combos that you're talking about is back then, when you first got into Dota around TI2 era, ranked Dota didn't even exist back then.
Yeah, MMR
So
wasn't a thing.
like everybody back then is just playing with their friends, just playing Dota to play Dota. And I feel that the mindset for the majority of players behind Dota has really, really changed from back then, because back then, you could just play to play a lot, and that was like an acceptable thing to do. But with esports coming up, and all like the prize pools in Dota just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, a lot of people look at Dota as this game where it's just like, if you're playing Dota, like you have to like try hard, and you have to focus, and you have to like know the meta, and you have to like really, really play the game. And I feel like that casual aspect of Dota has really like not been eliminated, but it's
It's
definitely not as,
discouraged.
yeah, it's definitely discouraged nowadays. And I that makes me a bit sad, because I feel I never would have gotten into Dota if I had to basically like think about Dota the way I think about it now from the beginning, if that makes sense. Because in the beginning, I would just play with friends, and just try to come out up with wacky combos, and just like just see what worked, and just have fun with it. And pubs nowadays, it's always like everybody's trying to get that MMR high, and like really, really chasing like professional Dota, or whatever it is that people are aiming for nowadays. And I don't know. I just think it's a bit of a shame, because the community really has just gotten so try hard over the last like 4 years or so, that it's just like, I don't know, that there's really not as much casual gameplay in Dota. And I think it's sad, because I think the game really is still fun. Like it's just fun first and foremost. And a lot of people forget that. Everyone is just too worried about their MMR, or they do.
I do that too. I
Yeah,
sometimes forget too.
yeah.
Yeah, you know me. I'm definitely the
Yeah,
type of guy to take it too seriously too often. I think obviously, especially when you do it for a living, you do have to take it seriously somewhat. But getting back to the core root of like why we love playing this game
yeah.
is important to not lose sight of. And I think my biggest issue is like, so a lot of time when I've been trying to teach people, I've had a lot of people either saying they're coming back to Dota, obviously because of COVID, or like kind of newer
Mhm.
players that are like in my channel saying like, hey, I'm trying to learn the game, like I'm new to the game, and
Yeah, I
um,
have been seeing like Reddit posts and stuff, of people being like, "Oh, I don't like League anymore. I want to
yeah.
try Dota," and like stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm glad there's still like an influx of new people, but like I still feel the main mindset for these newer players is like, how can I improve really fast in this game, right? Like it's not just like, oh, I just want to go mess around in Dota. It's like, what is the fastest way for me to understand this game?
I think the
And
problem is not necessarily people who are trying to improve, but I hate the people that are so focused on their MMR that like
yeah, yeah,
nothing
yeah.
else matters. Like, can I do
Yeah.
something right now in the patch that's broken and gain MMR from it? And I don't think that mentality, like, I don't think the mentality to get better is necessarily a problem. Like,
No, no, no.
it
So
could be
yeah, you're right.
worse, right, with that. But
Yeah,
I'm saying it's like this idea that it's like, what's the shortcut to this MMR number going up, right? And
yeah.
that's my problem is you and I are on the same page, it seems like here, but with the people I've been trying to get into it, I'm like really trying to encourage, this is how I want you to think about the game, but then go explore the game, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
try to
Like,
like learn it from
throw
this
your own twist
perspective.
on it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but yeah, like you're gonna have to figure that out on your own, like in this
yeah,
meta, maybe it's gonna be this strategy, but You know, in the
Well,
future, it
well,
might be something different. Like, but
and that's something that I think really lacks in this game, especially now. Like a lot of people, a lot of people aren't 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 focused on like just being original and just doing shit that they want to do or whatever. Like I can't even begin to like tell you all of the things that I've learned from all four of the Zoomers on my team. Like all of them are like 5 6 years younger than me, and dude, I've learned so much shit from all of them. Like they all just have like fresh ideas,
yeah,
and they're
random
just like
perspectives on the
yeah,
game.
yeah, and it's great because like they didn't just like form all of their ideas off of other people. Like they all talked to a lot of people and like came to their own conclusions. And I don't know. They all have had very fresh perspectives for Dota, and I like I feel like there's not as much of that in this game. People in like the lower MMR brackets, like 4K or 3K or whatever. A lot of those people just come to streamers and are like, "What should I play? What are the best here?"
That
They're
question
trying to
gets so
get you to
old, man.
yeah, yeah, but like they're trying to get you to like tell them what to do rather than
Yeah,
kind of just like go about it their own self. Like what do they enjoy playing? What do they want to do? Like do they enjoy an aggressive style? Do they enjoy more of a team fight style? Do they people I feel like people don't ask themselves these questions enough when it comes to learning Dota because I mean I've gone through so many different play styles in this game, and I know for a fact like exactly what I like to do, what I don't like to do, what heroes I enjoy playing, I don't enjoy playing. I have a really good read on my own style in the game, but I don't have a great read on other people's styles. Like I can't
yeah,
tell you what to play. Like you have to discover that for yourself. You have to come to your own conclusions. And
absolutely.
I really think that that's like I don't know. That's not really taught in Dota. Everybody is just like, "Oh, yep, the pros know best," and they want to be told what to do rather than just explore Dota for themselves and just have fun with it, right? Like, I mean, MMR doesn't even really matter until you start getting to like, maybe like 7 8K or something.
Yeah,
At
who
least
gives
in
a
my
crap?
opinion, like,
Uh,
like
like when
you're
somebody's
just
4K and they're talking about getting to 5K, I'm like, why do you care about getting to 5K? Like, let's just worry
yeah.
about getting better, and maybe you'll
Yeah,
eventually hit 6 or
yeah.
7K, right?
Just
Like,
focus on improvement and
uh,
have fun. Like you
uh,
don't have to worry about the end goal yet. Like just go about it your own
this
way.
is
That
definitely a
that
topic
that's
that could be an entire episode
yeah,
of
yeah.
like a series of episodes so that we
Yeah.
could talk about. Both being that we are streamers that have plenty of viewers come to us with questions. We definitely get a heavy dose of like the overall mentality of like people watching streams and stuff, and it definitely is an issue. And when it comes to like getting into Dota and everything, the beauty of the game is that there's so many ways to play, there's so many heroes to play, there's so many different things to try, and as long as your mindset's reasonable of like, okay, like I always teach people to ask themselves questions, right? Like ask themselves like, hey, when do I want to fight? Who do I want to fight? If I'm farming, who do I want to farm near? Like these type of questions. But like that's something where maybe you don't know the matchup or maybe you don't even know and you're just trying to figure it out. But maybe if something goes
Yeah.
wrong, you can remember my question that I told you to ask and maybe next time it won't make the same mistake.
Yeah.
But it's like that's the type of growth that's so beautiful about Dota, where the questions I'm asking them, these are questions I still have to ask myself at 8.5K, right? Like
D-
it never ends. Like the growth, the figuring out the game, like you said, you're still learning from four
Absolutely.
players on your
Yeah.
team. The growth, the learning, that's the enthusiastic part that I feel like takes like you have to enjoy that part to
Yeah.
love Dota. And if you get into
Dude.
Dota, you're not gonna last very long if you don't have that, I think.
Dude, I have probably close to 35,000 hours in Dota and Dota 2 like combined. And dude, I still every day I am still learning new things in Dota every single game I play. I'll overextend somewhere and I'll just be like, "Oh wow, I really thought this fight was going to go better for us like based on our heroes and their heroes and like all of this stuff and like maybe it was misexecution, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, but like, I'm always thinking about like all of this stuff and
Yeah.
I'm never stagnating. I never just go, up I guess that just didn't work for some reason. I'm like,
Hmm.
why didn't this work?
Damn.
Why
You know.
I'm like I think a lot about like everything that's happening like every single day basically, and it's like I don't know. even for me, I'm still working on growing. Like a lot of people are like, "Wow, you're so good. Like, how did you get that good?" Well, it's because I continuously put in the time and the effort and like the practice. It's just practice, 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 practice. Like I and well, that can be stressful for a lot of people because practice can it can get old or tedious or boring or whatever. But like really, if you do want to get good at Dota, don't look at your team. Look at you. Like
Yeah.
what can you
I've
learn
gotten
from
so tired of these
everything?
questions. I know that viewers cycle through, right? So this is like a PSA. Obviously, people who are
Yeah,
watching
yeah,
live, people who are watching on, iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube or whatever. It's like, guys, if you're coming into our channel and you're saying, "How do I deal with these shit teammates?" God, just drop your mentality, man. Just shut
yep,
the fuck up. Like we do it
yeah,
sometimes too, right? Like we do. Like I do it more. Like you do
yeah,
it
yeah.
way less than I
I
do.
mean,
But like to some
I
extent,
also do it.
everyone does it. But if you're out of the game, right? Like you're not in the middle of the stressful mentality that's in the middle of a game. Can you not? Like, can you realize that no matter what, all of the people in your bracket are just as good or bad as you are, and the only way to get out is to ignore their existence? Like, I'm not saying to ignore like playing with them, but ignore their impact on the game. Like,
Yeah,
what can
because you
you
can.
do to make
Yeah,
your
you can
impact
only control
greater?
yourself in
Like,
pubs.
and it's
So
so frustrating that that mentality is so rampant in general. Like, not even just in Dota, but like, we're not gonna go into that. But in Dota, it's like, PSA, just stop, guys. Like,
yeah,
it's obviously something you see streamers do, and I know I'm not perfect. I do it too, but it's not a good thing. That doesn't make it okay. And like, yeah, in the middle of the game, maybe you'll be a bit frustrated, but if you constantly remind yourself, like, hey, this is what I could have done better, all that kind of shit,
all,
that's what's gonna get you MMR the next game, right? Like that's what's
all
gonna make you better in
here
the future.
here's my honest best advice to every pub player out there. No matter what goes wrong on your team, don't like the initial 10 seconds you have like after a play goes wrong or whatever, just don't use your mic. Everything that you have to say in those 10 seconds is
Is
just gonna
emotionally driven.
make it's just gonna make yeah, it's emotionally driven. It's gonna make everyone mad. Like no one's gonna want to like play anymore. Just sit there, recollect yourself, go, okay, you know, this play went wrong. How do we like move forward from here? Rather than dwelling on the past, just look forward. Look at your next plays. Like the past is the past. And that is honestly my best advice for everyone out there because tilting your team will never result in anything
Okay, let's
positive.
ignore even tilting your team. Okay, I think
Or
when
well,
I tilt
tilting
my team,
yourself
I'm saying
too.
when you tilt your team, I think you tilt yourself just as much. Like I
Yeah,
refuse to
yeah,
believe that the guy who acts like he's doing it just to be a troll and tilting his team, he's tilting himself off the face of the planet. Like
yeah.
you can't
That
argue
that
that.
is
And
that is a good
like
point.
the big thing for me though is like if I'm playing like that, if I have good teammates, the day is like incredibly enjoyable. And
Mm,
if I don't, my day's incredibly miserable. Like I'm actually
yep.
fucking miserable. And it's like,
Yeah.
why do you want that? Like, why do you
Yeah.
want your teammates to dictate your mood that day? Like the biggest thing for me in Dota, like when people say they got tired of the toxicity and stuff, I'll have a day like, yeah, I'm obviously not gonna be happy, right? There's gonna be days
Yeah.
if I go like 2-7 or something where I'm like,
Yeah.
not exactly happy. But if I felt like I was focusing on something I could have gotten better at, I was maybe practicing a new hero or like trying a new matchup or whatever. Like I feel like after the game, like people say, like BSJ, how are you not insanely tilted after that game? And I'm just like, well, like, was I really supposed to anything I could have done about my mid going, losing by 3 levels
Yeah.
in the first 10 minutes? Like I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Like nothing I could have done. So it's just like
So
that
yeah.
mentality makes you sane. Like it actually makes
Yeah.
you
It really
enjoy the
does.
game way more too. Like I think it's so easy to fall into that trap. And it's something where it's like getting into Dota, you want that purity of like exploration that we talked about, and continuing to play Dota, which is kind of where this conversation has gone. I think that mentality, if you lose sight of that, is the downfall. It's the killer, right? And
Yeah.
what I want to say now is I want to stop our slight tangent. And so a question I 100% wanted to ask. So you mentioned the Omni Knight quintuple Ogre Axe build here, okay?
Yeah.
So I think anyone in chat can relate to this, right? Anyone. I'll let you go first unless you need time to think, and then I'll go
Mm.
first. Once you were maybe like 2 years in, 3 years in, so you knew enough about the game where it can be as anywhere in that range, where you knew enough about the game that you thought you were smart, or like you thought you knew some
Mm.
crazy shit. what was like your first strategy that you were like, nobody's thought of this before? This build is dope. Like,
Are we talking Dota 1
it
in
can be as
addition to Dota
early or
2?
like impactful as you think. Like, it can be anywhere in there.
So the first idea that I think like me and my group of friends had was Keeper of the Light Middle, and we would rush Heart on it. And it was actually like just an unkillable hero because back then you had this the alt was you would basically summon a wisp that would summon priests that would like heal.
Okay.
So it was
I
like
don't know
a
this
really
call, but
really
okay.
weird thing, but basically like the farming speed on Kato was so fast because you could just like shove out mid with Illuminate. You would have infinite mana. You could go farm jungle while mid is pushing, and you would just be able to like get a ton of farm really really quickly. And we would literally go right click Kato because the alt would also suit that because the alt was just like I don't really know what to compare it to in current day Dota. Like the alt was just so absurdly strong that like a fast level 6 on Coddle back then was just good. And that was one of the first strategies that like my friend group would come up with. We would just be like, all right, mid Coddle, and then like just get a lot of like a lot of like stuns and stuff in the side lanes, and just play like a super fast high tempo game. And like just we had so much fun doing that basically.
Did you have any
But
builds where you were like, just say equivalent of like 3-4K, right? Like whatever it is now, right? Back then, that you thought were sick and somehow became adapted into that you saw it in a competitive match at some point where you're like, holy shit, I did that.
well, I mean, back then I didn't even know competitive Dota existed. I didn't even know competitive Dota existed until TI1, and I watched like some of TI1, but like since TI1 was on Dota 2, and I had only played Dota 1 by that point, like I would look at Dota 2, and I could not tell what was going on because I had no idea about like what animations looked like, what
Yeah.
heroes looked like, what like I just couldn't follow what was happening early on. And also for those of you who like actually remember early Dota, everything was purple. I swear, Dust of Appearance was like this giant purple eye. Like every spell in the game was just like a purple cloud or something, and I could not distinguish anything from it, like anything. So I still remember the first time I played a Dota 2 game. I played Puck, I believe, and I was like decent at Dota back then, and I started out as a mid player, and I just I I was so confused by what everything looked like. Like I would think creeps were life stealer. I would think I would think neutral creeps were ogre magi or something like that. I would think Dust of Appearance was like some other thing. I don't know. It was just awful. I ended up going like 0-6, and someone on my team abandoned, and then we just left the game in 11 minutes or something like that. Dota was a rough
Okay.
early game.
I got a couple stories to go off of yours. Real quick. So my first story is a bit off topic, but you reminded me when you said like, things went wrong and you didn't go as expected. You went 0-6 mid. This was
Yeah.
like right when I played with my friends. This was maybe like 8 or 9 months in, so I wasn't as good as them yet, but I had some sort of ego that like, oh, I'm starting. I was gaining rank or what, I was playing. I was definitely winning majority of my games, and
Mm.
I thought I was like kind of hot shit. And so we get into our party queue, and before that, I'd pretty much always been demoted to support or like offline or something. And
Mhm.
this time around, I was randoming every game. I was just randoming every game, and I
Yeah,
random
yeah.
tiny, and I was like, I'm down to go mid. And I'm like, and I said something along the lines of like, my friend still gives me shit for it this day. I'm like, I know how to play this hero. I've played him 3 times, and I proceed to go mid and just go like 0-5 or get fucking demolished and just costs the game against the Queen of Pain.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still get the whole like, trust me, guys, I know how to play tiny. And so like back then, it was just so funny where like you there's so many people in Dota, I'm sure, that can relate, that just think they know their shit and then they just
Yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
dumbasses. But the one build I had, I was convinced. You can ask my friends. This was like 2 or 3 years in, which for me obviously is like Dota 2, so it's a bit more like there is competitive Dota, all that kind of shit.
Mm.
I was convinced I was doing the mid carry before anyone else, by the way. At least like before it
Mm-hmm.
was popularized, okay? Like with
Ah,
my friends, I realized the only way I could carry them at that point was with I picked a carry hero and went mid. So
yeah.
I would pick like Slark, and like at one point when you could random and then swap, I would random and then my teammate would give me Slark, so I'd be Slark with a poor man shield at the start of the game. That was how I was carrying my team. But I would go sniper mid, okay?
Okay.
And I would go Midas first with like a Wraith Band, like first item Wraith
Uh,
Band or whatever. I go straight Midas into Boots of Travel, into Sanj and Yasha, Scotty, Basher. Okay, like I would go this shit like every single game, right? And I just thought I was the coolest fucking shit because I was like, what happened was I remember this one time a Slardar chased me from his own tier 3 to my tier 1, and I was just poink poink because that was back when Sanjay Yasha slowed, right? So it was like poink boink boink, and he would chase me. I did no fucking damage though because I had minus Sanjay Yasha Scotty, and the guy chased me for literally like a minute and a half from his tier 3 to my tier 1, and then he finally died. And because we were the only two alive, because like there was like a team wipe on both sides, all their
yeah.
8 heroes are dead, and for me, I thought I was so fucking cool with going like this mid sniper build, and it's one of those where it's like sometimes it would work beautifully, and then sometimes it would be a complete failure. And to
That
this day, I'm like, I look at my viewers when they'll say like, BSJ, I feel like this works sometimes and it doesn't the others, and I'm like, it's because the same build doesn't work every fucking game, man. I
yeah.
used to do the same thing.
that that actually reminded me of so you were asking about strategies that like me and my friend group initially went for or whatever, and I complete honestly I've been playing Dota for so long that I forget like half the shit that I've ever even done in Dota. But or at least there's like time lapses, right, of like eras of when I was playing the game, and I just like don't really remember that much about it or whatever because it was so long ago. But I do remember that there was a time in Dota 1, like right before Dota 2 came out, that me and my friends, we were still just having fun doing random builds, and we basically, or me and two of like my closest Dota friends, which I actually one of them like switched over to Dota 2, and we were playing Dota 2 all the time for like 3 years or something, and then he just disappeared one day. And but I believe it's still been 5 years now since he's even logged on to Steam. So like we literally went from talking every single day to he just hasn't been
He's
on
gone.
Steam in 5 years, and I just haven't heard from him, which is like it's a really weird thing. I don't know, like I'm sure a lot of people have experienced something like that before, but like I literally went from like having this person in my life and like talking to them like every day basically to just just gone. And but anyways,
Sad.
back in Dota 1 when like we were still playing and everything, with the max movement speed was 522 ms,
Yeah.
and we basically renamed our like we made new battle.net accounts called I get 522 ms, I get 521 ms, I get 520, and we literally had 5 accounts named like five, or that went from 518 to 522, called I get 522 ms, and literally all of us would basically go Boots of Travels, Drums, SNY, Yules,
Nice.
and but like I think there's one other movement
Mask of
speed item
Madness or
that.
something.
Yeah, probably Mask of Madness, and we would just all be hasted all the time, so we would just run around the map together, hasted, just killing everything in sight, and it was one of the most fun things I've ever done.
Dude, I used to love doing that on Ursa. I pretty much took all my favorite heroes and just did stupid builds on them. With Ursa, I would always do the like whenever I was bored, I'd do the race car Ursa build, with all the
Yeah,
same items, and I
yeah,
would usually build like a Dagon at the end because I would be Earth shocking people and then just
yeah,
Dagoning them. But I remember I had a few game ruining or pub ruining builds where like I have like 110 games on Nature's Prophet, right?
mm,
And I till this day can't play Nature's Prophet. I've never taken the time to learn him now, but all those games were Jungle Nature's Prophet, Midas, Dagon, like all of them. All of them were Midas, Dagon, Nature's Prophet. I'd have like
Cliff Jungling Fury.
I didn't cliff jungle. I did not cliff jungle, okay? I straight up, used the treants. I'd micro them. I was real tryhard about like getting that efficiency in, but I was a life stealer, doom, Nature's Prophet, jungling specialist. Like that's I was one of those guys.
What about Legion? What about Legion?
I actually never played Legion jungle.
Really?
That was never like for whatever reason. Maybe I phased it out at that point, but like I was jungling carry heroes. I didn't really think of Legion as like a carry. Yeah, so I just think it's funny because everyone has their own little history of like I do remember when Steam names like when you loaded into the Dota game and it was like 5 people on 5 people and you could have like a picture or like a phrase that was between your guys' names. I always enjoyed that. So I think I'm gonna have one last question to wrap up the podcast here. So we talked about getting into Dota and all the reasons why we like Dota. It doesn't necessarily have to be the day you made it as a pro or whatever. What was like, how do I ask this question? It's like, what was that one moment where you felt like, wow, this is really cool, or like I've made it, or I can't believe I've come this far, or something like that. What was like your first moment like that?
I think, I mean, I've definitely had a lot of super memorable moments in Dota. So like I don't want to like
the first
say
one because today's the origin. What's the first one? We'll have plenty to talk about the rest.
And I would say again like I maybe there would be a different one if I really like had a long time to think about it, but the first one that I would say like that I felt like straight relief in almost was the Shanghai Major qualifiers where I was on Team Archon. And basically before the Shanghai Major qualifiers, I was on a team with Fluff and Stuff, Jo, Moo, and Whitebeard. Which Fluff, Jo might still be competing. I don't actually know. But Fluff and Whitebeard are not competing. Moo is currently in Business Associates.
He's not competing either. Sorry, I'm kidding. Continue.
Ouch, VSJ. But yeah, so on that team, we had some internal struggles before the Shanghai Major qualifiers, and I thought we had a really good lineup on that team, and we had a sponsor who gave us a boot camp like a week and a half in advance of the qualifier, so we could all fly to the house in LA. This was back in late or early 2015, and we could all fly to the house and prep for the qualifiers together. And like as I'm sure boot camps are very beneficial, and like you can all look at one screen, go over replays together, etc., etc. And that week and a half was very stressful. We had a lot of disagreements and a lot of talks, a lot of whatever. And going into the qualifiers, I mean, I was ready to compete, but I would not say I was confident that we would be able to get a top 2 spot to be able to qualify for the Shanghai Major. Like, I thought we were good enough, but like, I thought a lot of things basically had to go right for us to like, really show up. And we ended up winning the group stage, and we ended up coming first, or like we won the first best of 3 against Complexity, which was Complexity and Digital Chaos, I believe back then were like the favorites, like by far. Everyone was like, yep, DC and Cole, free qualifiers for them to go to Shanghai. And it was intimidating for me back then because I was still getting really nervous. Like I'm playing for a qualifier to go to a $3 million tournament in China. Like I was really nervous. And I still remember the first series against Complexity was so long and grueling. Our first game against them, I played Invoker. I don't encourage anyone to watch this game. It was like a 2-hour plus long game against Complexity, and I was on Invoker. Probably the worst Invoker you will ever see for the first hour and a half of that game. Like I was just missing spells left and right, all of this stuff.
Sounds about right.
So at about like an hour and 40 minutes into the game, I believe Complexity pauses the game and they're like, "Can we have a bathroom break? Like this game is like there was no end in sight." And like everyone was like, antsy and just like, so we were like, "Yeah, sure, get like 2-minute bathroom break." So everyone goes to the bathroom except for me. I'm just kind of sitting there brooding, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm playing this badly on Invoker right now." And I remember Moo comes up to me and is just like, "Jaren, clear your mind. You're a great Invoker player. You're gonna get this. Like we're gonna win this game. Just refocus." And I'm like, all right, yeah, you're right. The next like 20 minutes of that game, I just played out of my mind, and we actually won the game. And I was like so relieved after that game. I was like, wow, they're actually beatable. We can do this. And then we actually went on to get first place in the entire qualifier. And
I see this
I
game.
I
Somebody in chat linked it for me. Looks like a nice
I
game.
I genuinely was so relieved though after we won that qualifier because again going into it I thought we were a weak link going into it, basically, and which is first of all a trash attitude, a trash mentality. Should not have thought that in the first place.
Absolutely.
But obviously, being like a younger competitor at the time, I was just like super nervous, not confident in my own skill, etc., etc. And I just remember after qualifying, I just let out like the biggest breath of air, just like, "Oh my fucking god, I'm going to China!" Like, what? And that was like, I was just so relieved that all of the time that I put into Dota up until that point, I believe I was 21 or no, I was 22 at the time. All of the time that I put into Dota up to that moment, I was just like, thank fucking goodness. Like, I like I felt I had finally proved that I was like a decent Dota player. No, maybe not a great Dota player, but I was at least a decent Dota player because I made it to a Valve major, and I was just like, yes, like yes, I've done it. Like, but then obviously didn't the tournament didn't go so hot.
We'll
Got
ignore
last
that
place,
part.
but
We'll ignore that part. So I'll take a bit of a more relatable one for the viewers, just because I don't want to talk about all the majors I've qualified for. I'll talk about something more relatable with. Okay, no pity giggle there. Okay, thank you. So basically, well, like a moment for me. This isn't like a moment in like my competitive career, but it's a moment earlier on that I don't even think I've mentioned until this day. I remember like recalling it like a month or so ago. But this was back when you said there was no MMR, right? And the
yeah,
only way I could know if I was getting any better at Dota was if you went on Dota Buff, it would say like normal skill, high skill, and like very high skill. Like that was the only indicator of
yeah,
like
yeah,
the strength of the
yeah, yeah,
people in your game. And I finally got to the very high skill bracket, okay? And I was like, wow, like crazy. I can't believe I got there. And then like
yeah.
a week or two after I got there, I got into a game and I was playing mid TA, and Merlini was on the other team, okay? And he was playing mid Darkseer. I still
Uh,
remember this shit. And I suck at TA to this day. But I was playing mid versus Merlini, and at like 4 or 5 minutes in, he dove me and I got first blood. Killing Merlini. And I was
that's
like,
sick.
holy shit. Back then, like, I revered, like, Demon and Merlini and all these other early streamers in Dota. And I was like, holy shit, I just killed a streamer. He was streaming this game, too. And I was, like, so fucking excited. I'm like, holy shit. I'm in a very high skill match against a streamer, and I killed him.
Yeah,
And, obviously, like, when I look back on it, he was definitely dicking off, like, trying to dive me with Darkseer against TA. But it was, like, for me, that was one of those points where I'm like, wow, like, that I felt so good. And I think for the average viewer, like, maybe they may have a moment like that in their career. But for me, like back then, I had no indicator of anything that I was getting any,
yeah,
like, I thought I was getting better, but that was like one of the first moments where I'm like, wow, am I finally not absolutely terrible at the game? But in
yeah.
regards to competitive, just to wrap it up here, I did have one game where my first LAN, the Red Bull LAN we qualified for, Brax was getting DDoSed a lot. He was actually getting DDoSed.
Oh,
Like
was he?
this was a problem where back then people were actually getting DDoSed, and
Yeah.
Brax had it happen in like 2 or 3 of our games, and we were playing against Root Gaming. Moo was on this team, and
Uh-huh.
We were playing against him, I mean. And like 30 minutes in, 25 minutes in, Brax was our mid Lena, and he got DDoSed from the game.
Wait, actually, isn't that the Root Gaming I was on?
Were you on that team?
Yeah, I was on
Suck
that team
it!
with Moo
I
and
didn't even
Fluff.
know! Okay, I honestly only remembered Moo. I didn't remember anyone at the time. Yeah, and we played 4v5 with no fucking Lena to get to the Red Bull land. That's fucking hilarious.
I actually think I remember losing that, and we were so fucking mad.
I was playing Phantom Lancer, and I just remember
and wasn't Moo was on Terrorblade, right?
Yeah, Moo was
Yeah.
Terrorblade. Demon
Yeah.
was playing like support Night Stalker or some trash. And we had to micro Lena for the rest of the game because we just didn't have a mid hero. And that was like I think that was like the second game of the best of 3, and we had to win it to I think you guys won the first game, and then we ended up winning the best of 3. Like we had to win that game. That's all. We had to win that game.
I think I remember that. We were so upset after that series.
Yeah.
Oh man, I remember that.
Yeah, that's even better. I was not trying to needle you there or anything like that. I did not. I did not realize you were on that team. I only remembered Moo. I can't remember anyone else on that team. So.
Yeah, it was me, Moo, Fluff, TC, and Fun, I believe.
Okay, that sounds about right. That was the first line I ever qualified for, and it was all on the back of that.
Yeah, I remember because that was one of those LAN events that were or qualifiers that we were like, we only have to beat like 2 teams to make it. We can do this, guys.
Like
the EG's not here. We got this. And then we won the first game, and we were like so hyped. And then we lost the second game 4v5, and then we were all so emo, and we were like, we didn't know how to like recuperate after that.
Oh man, there's so many. Thanks for reminding him of one of the worst days of his life. Somebody in chat says, yeah, that's you can't script that. I definitely, I haven't even like mentioned that game really to anyone, so that's why I'm surprised it never randomly came up between you and I at all our random skirmishes.
I mean, this is kind of what I mean though. Like I mean, both of us have been in Dota for so long. Like it's so easy to just forget like the details of all of the years of competing, right? Like
yeah.
I mean there's been so many random teams I've been on. There's been so many random teams I've played. Like I don't know, man. Sometimes the memories just get lost.
Yeah, it's but then when somebody brings it up, you like remember the game vividly, right? Like you're like, okay, I remember I was playing this, and these are the people on my team. Like that's just how Dota is, right? Like that's the funny thing is none of them come in like small bunches. You give me like a small hint at a game I played, I'm like, holy shit, I remember that game almost almost exactly as it played out. But on that note, like that is one of the beautiful things about Dota, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're still here playing, and you for 17 years, me for 8, whatever it is.
I would not still play this game unless I truly loved it, and let me tell you, I truly love Dota. This game, it is just so unique, man. There's always stuff to learn. You can always get better, and that's the beauty of it. Like, you really... you're never gonna get to a point in Dota where there's nothing else. There's nothing left to learn.
Yep.
Like you can always get better.
I beat this game.
Point. Yeah. There really isn't. Like you have to constantly adapt. You have to constantly improve. You have to constantly change your play style, and it's lovely. It's Dota. It's so fun.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So, do you have any closing thoughts other than what you just said for this week's episode?
That's it.
Yeah, that was a good closing thought. You kind of stole my thunder there. So, appreciate everyone tuning in this week. It was quite a fun topic talking about the origins of Dota for both of us, and a little bit in between here and then. But we'll be back hopefully next week, assuming no issues for your tournament schedule or my sleep schedule or whatever.
We have a couple tournaments going up, but I believe they might be on the earlier side coming up. So yeah, I mean, no matter what, we'll do the podcast.
Stay tuned, guys. Keep yourselves posted. We'll let you know if we change the schedule or whatever. We'll try to make it as consistent as possible. But until then, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one until next week.
Yep. Have a good one, everyone.